Well, sports fans, yours truly, Coach Kevin Bull Jones here. And I just want to say that I wanted to make sure everybody got their point of views and thoughts on the game out first, because I wanted to bring my brothers back in to talk about the recap of what happened in the championship game, national championship game. And I wanted to make sure that you heard it from two guys that know it like anybody, no one else in high school football today. All right. So if you enjoy the show, please make sure you subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And I appreciate all those comments. All my TCU fans and Georgia fans left. It was great to hear from you all and also hear those score predictions. And of course, none of us were right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce my wonderful friends that are joining me. Legendary high school coach, a great mentor and friend, Coach Russ Prost. Good to see you.
Good seeing you, Coach.
Also, Coach Joel Williams, currently defensive coordinator at Monsignor Pace High School down in South Florida. Also part of one of those great Miami teams back in the day and one of the other high schools down there back in the past. But once again, sports fans, I brought on these gentlemen here, a wealth of knowledge, wealth of state championship titles on this video, and I'm just glad to have you all. Well, guys, it's over. The score, indicative. Some people don't believe what the score was, especially folks that didn't watch the whole game. But 65-7. I'm gonna start with you, Coach Prost, because I want to know what the heck happened to TCU in that game.
You know, the score that I picked, I think, was 38. It was 14 points, I think. But my gut, I didn't want to say this, but my gut was it was going to be about 45-13. But it was way worse than that because it's as big a beat. I went to the Alabama, I think you may have too. I went to the Alabama Notre Dame game in the Orange Bowl in 2012. And I thought that was a beatdown. And I mean, they physically beat Notre Dame from the first drive to the last drive. But this game was as big a beatdown as any football team that I've ever seen take on that level. And especially supposed to be matched pretty good. I mean, you would have thought after TCU beat Michigan that they would be able to compete somewhat. They never competed in the game. They had that one drive that was benefited by either a penalty or something else that they scored.
Right.
But after that, I don't remember TCU even remotely looking like they was even. I mean, it looked like a UT Chattanooga playing like playing LSU or Alabama. I mean, it was that bad. And I just never seen a team that looked. And it's not that they look bad. Georgia was just that good. And I thought you heard Coach Saban say before the game that he was concerned for TCU at the line of scrimmage. And I think we all knew that when he said that, we all knew that TCU would struggle with certain things. But my goodness, it was a total domination that, and people want to say, I think Kirby could have beat them 85-7. I really believe if he had wanted to, he could have beat them 85-7. And I really mean that. And I think it was just a total beatdown from the get-go. They couldn't match their line of scrimmage. They couldn't match their tight end game. The multiple tight ends. Washington was healthy. We thought when Washington was healthy, that would be a disadvantage for TCU. I thought Stetson Bennett played as good as he's played ever. There's not one mistake I saw him make, hardly. And they got that receiver back that played. He did play in the semifinal against Ohio State, but I thought he was a huge factor in the game. They just kept running running backs in and out. But they could just do what they wanted to. And to be honest with you, I thought TCU in the second half quit.
Yeah. Ooh, yes, sir.
I thought they quit. I thought they was late. I mean, they didn't totally quit, but you could tell that they were shell shocked and that they had no life left in them, none.
That's a good point. I agree with you on that. Joel, let's get your thoughts on it, on what happened to the game. Let me add that this was the least viewed national championship game under the college football playoff scenario. This is the least. It's 17.2 million people watch this game. That's the lowest number out of all those games. What's your thoughts, Joel?
I'm going to tell you, we talked about it, and we said that they were going to have problems with Georgia's their front offensive front. I'm going to tell you when I stopped watching the game. Coaches, you guys tell me if you remember this play. I'm no offensive guy by no means. I'm going to call it quarterback power. When they pulled the lineman and ran to the left side, and Stetson Bennett scored the football. Yeah. They didn't have anybody to block. Them guys didn't touch anybody.
No.
And I can only imagine when the halftime came, what adjustments can we make, Coach? You cannot continue to try and have linebackers setting the edge on an offense that was doing what the hell they wanted to.
Right.
They just I mean, yeah, they were defeated. Yeah, they gave up. But at the end of the day, it was like they had nothing to go to in the basket. Right. The coach never made an adjustment. And to say he never made one, I don't think they had an adjustment to make. Because it was like, we're going to win and die with this 3-3.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, it was just pathetic, my brother. I think when I turned the game off, it was 30-38 or something like that to 7.
Well, let me say this. Hats off to. Let me say this, because I'm like Coach Prost, my brother from another mother. I am a Bama fan, but the coach in me must, and this is Coach One Sports, and on this podcast we like to give love to the coaches. That's what this podcast is all about, highlighting, sharing the insights of being a coach, because everybody can do what we do. But let me salute the Georgia football staff for incredible game, because I didn't think that they were going to be able to be. I questioned, if y'all remember, would they be up for this game after what they went through with Ohio State and them missing the field goal and Georgia going on to the championship game. I did question that, but I want to say hats off to every coach on that staff, starting with Kirby Smart and everyone in the downline, guys that I know on that staff, great friends of mine. To see the joy on their face of winning again. Listen, I was like you guys. I really didn't. I'm not gonna lie. I could not. I fell asleep somewhere in the fourth quarter, and that's not the way it's supposed to happen. And the things that you guys highlighted about what were some of the big things that were going to determine how this game was going to play out. The 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends. All of that came into play. And then watching them get Brock Bowers started early in the game, all I could say was, this doesn't look good. But can y'all tell me this? Coach, I'm going to start with you, Coach. Joel, I'm going to start with you, then I'm going to go to Coach Pro. Can you tell me, you just mentioned that one play that you felt like TCU didn't have the coaches didn't put them in a position to be successful. What was the final part that you just said, this is over? What play or what scenario happened when you said this is over and they are a better team than TCU?
That play, Coach. That play, they got the ball down in TCU's red zone. Mm-hmm. And they ran the quarterback power. They pulled the front and back. I don't know. They just pulled the front side guard tackle, I guess.
Yeah, it was front side tackle.
It was just
pin pull.
Yeah.
They had nobody to block. Nobody came in the frame. I'm like, who are these guys? Who? I mean, is this like iron sulfate? Is it Team Fool's gold? I mean, what the hell is going on? This is the national championship. And then none of this stuff that we saw them guys doing all year long, none of that stuff worked. And I'm gonna tell you something else. But a good coaching buddy of mine. I don't know if you guys know Jeep Hunter.
Jeep Hunter, yeah.
He said to me, that's the reason we play football in the SEC. It's either SEC or nothing else. And I couldn't say nothing. I couldn't say a word. And to say because TCU beat Michigan, I just think TCU caught Michigan. They caught him sleep.
They did.
They just caught him sleep. But they had no business there, my brother. They had no business in Los Angeles at that stadium.
Nope.
None.
You open up a can of worms on that one because I know how I feel about that, Coach Probst. I'm gonna hand this off to you and let you finish this on this topic about what play you saw or what scenario or situation happened that you said this is done.
No, I think he's right. I think that's that play because they had, first of all, they act like they'd never seen that play.
And Georgia runs it all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's a pin and pull, simple pin and pull. And it was like Velcro when Georgia got on them, they couldn't get off the block. There wasn't nobody out there, and there wasn't nobody trying to get out there. And so when I saw that, I said, "This game is fixing to be the worst beat down in the history of college football, and in a championship format." But you're right, Coach. They had no business being there. The committee ought to be embarrassed. That committee that put it, and the problem is. I text a media guy that has a show. I think we all know who that is. That has a show. And I said, that's the problem. When you have people that are not true football people picking, I've listened to Reese Davis all year on ESPN talking about TCU deserves to be there. TCU deserves to be there. It don't have anything to do with what you deserve. If you can't see with your eyes and your coaching glasses, we've all coached this game, and we can see TCU did not deserve to be in the Final Four. Right. They wasn't the four best teams in the country, and so they didn't deserve to be there. I don't care what nobody says; they didn't deserve to be there. And Michigan should be embarrassed for getting beat. Now, Michigan could not have beat Georgia.
Right?
They weren't going to beat Georgia, but it wouldn't have been 65-7.
That's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
It's embarrassing to college football. And, Coach, the play that I saw, guys, that I saw the look on, I think it was going from left to right. TCU was going from left to right across the screen. And I think that they ran some kind of reverse action where number 11 or number 1 got the ball and he was trying to turn the corner on Georgia. And I watched 29, I think it was the Bullet kid or the Smith kid. It was one of them. Came 12 and a half, toes at 12 now. 12, toes at 12. Okay, back that safety. Toes, not the heels. His toes were at 12 and a half. And he came and filled an alley, and I think it was number 11. That kid was fast. I watched him eat him up. But guys, the look on that kid's face when he got up and he looked as to say, who the hell hit me? That look on his face told me that TCU figured out something. What they bought the ticket, and now they got to deal with the show. And the show was the Georgia Bulldogs. And they truly showed why the SEC, there are only 3 teams that are the cream of the crop. And yes, I'm going to put Alabama in there, but right now, Georgia is the big dog on the block. That's what it is until they're taking off that part. Now, you can flip whoever else is up there. I don't know, but TCU, and I thought that they were going to play a better game because of the veteran leadership. And I wasn't a proponent of the 3-3 stack. Not me. Joel, you know how I feel about it. But they proved to me that this stuff works. So they had me believing. So I felt like a bad date that didn't get picked up.
It's fool's gold, Coach. Fool's gold.
Mm-hmm.
And watch this. So I want to know if that game on the defensive side of the ball, did you all notice that it at one point it looked like, and I thought TCU was fast, but Georgia ran
Just,
up and down the field. Coach,
just,
go ahead. Start with you.
No,
The
they
speed.
look like it's like Coach Bryant used to say back in his shows in the 70s. They look like Ned the first reader, and and, and they looked at. I mean, but you got to give Georgia a lot of credit because Georgia's coaching staff dominated the game. I mean, they outcoached them in every aspect. The players outplayed them.
and they had better athletes.
They had better athletes. They had better preparation. Now you got to give a lot of credit to Kirby, Will Muschamp. Uh,
Monkey.
what's the other defensive guy?
Trey Scott.
Yes, and then
Schumann. It's not Schumann.
Glenn Schumann, and then the offensive line. Obviously Monken is just on fire right now, and how that man don't get a job somewhere is beyond me because he has done a great job at Georgia. And then you throw in, I thought when they lost Sam Pittman that their offensive line would go down. Then they bring in the guy from Ole Miss.
Sorrels. Is that Sorrels?
Well, Stacey Searles, and I think, and so it seems like they have not had a bit of drop off on their offensive front. And don't underestimate, their support staff with people like Mike Bobo and I just think Kirby has a very unique staff that has the chemistry is really good. And with Buster Faulkner, he's an off the field guy. Bobo's off the field guy. They've just got a good. When you go in that staff meeting, they got things going in the right direction. And I've heard this from a ton of people. If you go to Georgia's fourth quarter conditioning program that he brought over from Alabama, they're doing it better than anybody right now. When you go to their summer workout, and I know those coaches get a vacation, but it looks like to me Georgia ain't taking all their vacation. Looks like they're doing the work. And because I'm gonna promise you now, their summer work right now is better than anybody in the country. At what they're doing in the summer. So when you couple the nutrition and the weight room that they've now assembled, their condition, their strength and conditioning, their nutrition, their coaching, obviously got one of the best indoor facilities in the country. But yeah, Georgia right now, they're on top and they're not going anywhere. And now I don't think Alabama's going anywhere either. I think Coach Saban's got a hard job ahead of him. I think he's got to restructure his staff. I think he's got to recreate his culture, and a lot of things. But at the end of the day, Georgia is just physical. Lord, they're physical, and they're pretty disciplined too. But let's go back to let me retrace my steps a little bit. When you look at if us three take 7 more football coaches out there and we evaluate who should have been in the playoffs, man, you take the top 4 teams in the country. It's Georgia by a long shot. Ohio State is good enough to be there, no question about it. They should have beat Georgia, had Georgia beat. The next ones though, make people say I'm a homer. Alabama could be there because of Bryce Young. Tennessee could be there. Michigan would be in my choice about the 15. And then when you look at around outside of that, those 5 are probably the 5 teams, that you say LSU, but I think LSU is no. Now, if LSU and TCU played, who y'all think win that game?
I think LSU.
I do too. So I put LSU in there as a 16 before I'd put TCU. I'd probably have TCU about 8 or 9.
What about Penn State?
I'd put Penn State over TCU. I might even put Oregon over TCU. But I watched Alabama dominate Kansas State. Y'all did too.
Oh,
and
God.
I turned around and watched. I saw what Kansas State did to TCU. So, in the championship game. So, And I just be honest with you, I really thought Kansas State was as athletically as good as TCU. And so that goes to show you that the league is different. But I mean, there's 4 or 5 teams in the SEC.
Right.
You got those Tennessee, Alabama, and LSU, and on any given day, you could throw Ole Miss and Mississippi State and other teams in there too. So I mean, the SEC is a very, very good conference, and I think it's even going to be better next year. But the country wanted to see, in my opinion, the country. I'm talking about the people that know football. I ain't talking about the fans. Just the people,
fans, right.
People in general would like to have seen Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, if not Michigan, Tennessee back in there. You know, Tennessee guys are in the playoff and probably in the championship game if they don't lose South Carolina.
Right.
And it's not losing to South Carolina; it's how they lost.
Yes,
it's how they lost. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
They took a butt whipping.
Because I really believe Tennessee would have beaten me. If Tennessee would have been in and not TCU, it'd have been Tennessee, and they would have beaten Michigan, in my opinion. And then, Georgia and Ohio State, and then it would probably been Georgia and Tennessee.
And I wouldn't have had a problem with the 2-loss Alabama team being in there.
Well, yeah, but here's the deal. Like I've told 1 million people, you're right. But at the same token, who's the best teams, talent-wise? With Bryce Young, you cannot count him out to beat your tail. And Alabama didn't deserve to be there because how they played discipline-wise all year long and the lack of physicality on defense. But at the end of the day, when you look at the best talent and the quarterback situation, Alabama probably could have been there.
Right.
It's just their defense gave up the go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a question out there. Does Georgia have enough coming back for a trifecta?
I think Georgia will be, because look who they play next year. They got the softest schedule of anybody in the SEC.
Isn't that something?
It's unbelievable how bad the schedule is. And so, their toughest conference game is Georgia Tech, non-conference game. They got Austin Peay, I think. That's who they open with. Then they got Ball State. And then they've got UAB. And then they got Georgia Tech. There's your 4 non-conference. Well, they have Ole Miss coming to Athens.
And they play the Florida game in Jacksonville.
They go to the toughest game on their schedule is November 18th when they go to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the only game, in my opinion. Now, I think South Carolina will be better.
Yes, definitely better.
And I think South Carolina coming to Athens week 3 will be a challenge for Georgia because who's going to be the quarterback at Georgia? Beck?
Now, I was asking that same question.
I would think it's going to be Gunnar Stockton, but I might be wrong. But I will go with Beck for now.
Yeah, so it could be. So you got to break in a quarterback. Same thing Alabama's got to do. They're running back. My guy's coming back, Dejon Edwards, and he had a heck of a year.
Yes.
They're going to have, here's the deal. You got Brock Bowers again back.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's back. Probably the best football player in college football. And then defensively, they had some young players. So no, I think Georgia will be right there in the hunt. I think they win the East, and I think they'll be 12-0 going into the SEC championship game. And on the other side, unless Tennessee can up and beat them somehow in Knoxville, which could happen.
Right.
I think Tennessee's only going to get better on defense, which. Any given day up in Knoxville right now, boys, the way they got that thing rolling up there, they could be hard to beat in Knoxville.
Yeah,
down no more.
I actually went to that game when they played Clemson in the Orange Bowl, and that
Milton kid was special, huh?
Huh?
That Milton kid was slinging that thing
around. What are you talking? He was spinning that ball, my brother.
Yep.
But I remember. But I was also at the game when Josh Heupel was playing for Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl when they beat Florida State. I was at that game too, and it was just like Josh Heupel. He was home because that team the way they just do things, and not that the show is about Clemson, but Dabo he just was reaching, just looking for anything to try to change the tide in that game.
Yeah, I think they were outmatched. The team to me next year, I think USC's got a long way to go defensively. They got to get much better on defense. Their defense was just horrendous.
Right.
And I think the team to look at next year is one of the four is going to be Florida State Seminoles. I
Mm.
think Florida State could be right there to end next year. I'm expecting them to be 11-1, 12-0 going into the ACC championship game. I think it's Florida State next year. It has a legitimate shot to. They play LSU early, opening game, and if they get that one, um, I think Florida State can get on a roll and make a serious run at one of the four. I'm just so ready, guys, to get this thing to 12. Because y'all know as well as I do, and I've had teams myself that have been, a third or fourth seed team that have gone in them playoffs and got hot at the right time,
Right.
and it's all it takes. I mean,
Coach, I remember the year that I think you went either 1-4 or 0-5 one year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, next thing you know, you in state championship game.
Yep.
Did
it twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
And I think most of those victories, those playoff victories, were on the road. See.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that.
Well,
when does the preseason rankings come out?
What, for college football?
Yeah.
They won't come out till the summer.
That's the
summertime.
When they get through all the transfer portal
that's when I'll consider that Florida State
because he a Miami fan.
Yeah.
We're gonna do another show later on about.
And let me say this about Miami. I think Miami is still going to be a year away. I think they'll be better.
Yeah.
But I think Florida State's a year ahead of them right now. And I
agree.
I think Miami will catch them. And here's another thing, guys. That thing's fixing to get nice down there. Florida's going to get better. Miami's going to get better. And Florida State's going to continue to get better. And it's going to be like the old days. Them three teams right there.
And then you're gonna have Georgia and Bama right there with all that going on.
Oh yeah,
and Tennessee. I can't forget about them.
No.
Last thoughts, guys. I want to something that hit me and for the TCU fans, something very profound that Coach Dykes said after the game. He said that he told his kids when he was asked what is it that he wanted to share with his players. He said that is what we want to look like. Talking about Georgia. He said the Georgias and the Alabamas, just showing you how much credit Coach Dykes has for both programs. But let's stick to Georgia right now. He said that's the mark, that's the level that we want to get to. Both of y'all, I want y'all thoughts to close this thing out about how profound is it of what he was saying, because there's most of those players found out later. Most of those players on the team had, most of those kids, 2- and 3-star kids. You only had 4 or 4-star kids on the team. Started. Everybody else was 2- and 3-star kids. Found out later, some of those kids had never even been in playoff games before in high school for TCU.
That's right.
Coaching was at an optimum level. But I want both of you guys' thoughts on what Coach Dykes was really trying to tell his kids after that loss. And where did the TCU program go from here? Start with you, Joel, then I want to end it off with you, Coach.
I think by that statement and him clearly showing true admiration for what he saw, and him telling his kids that, I'm thinking it's going to take more than just words. You're going to have to be able to get those type of kids in your program to even mimic anything like what you saw. I don't know how many of his kids on his team were from the South, or were they all from Texas, or they all from Oklahoma, places like that. How many Florida kids did they have on it? How many Georgia kids on that team? Do they even recruit out there? So at the end of the day, you can say what you want to say. I mean, words are always fine, but when you put in the work, that Georgia stuff, that's just a little different, my man. Because at the end of the day, when you got big 3 techniques like Mr. Carter down there,
oh Lord,
What player on your team even sizes up to this guy?
Or Barry Alexander, the freshman.
Yeah, who sizes up to these? Where do these kids come from? And don't get me wrong, I know there's a lot of good football in Texas. I know there are a lot of good football players in Texas. But Confucius say you have to go around the world to facilitate a football team. You can't just get everybody from the same region every year and think you're going to be able to play the big dogs. They had no reason in that. They had no business in that game, my brother. None whatsoever.
No.
And at the end of the day, like I said, you gave Georgia the utmost respect by saying what you said. Yeah, I got whooped. We got whooped. But honestly, Coach, I think everybody should have been fired. The defensive coordinator should have been fired. The head coach should have been fired. At the end of the day, because you didn't put your kids in a position to even compete. You stayed in that same thing that you guys were comfortable with. You never came out of the box. You stayed where you were, and your kids you obviously saw your kids can compete, and you never made an adjustment either way on either side of the ball.
No.
So that's why when it comes to that kind of stuff, okay, yeah, I'll give Sato, Georgia, that's what it's supposed to look like. But brother, that's what you guys thought you were. That's why I say it was fool's gold. It was fool's gold. You thought you had something, but hey, knock. Here's Athens. You don't have nothing. Now you got to go back to the drawing board. You got to go back to your DC and say, listen, we got to be able to compete with this kind of stuff. We obviously can't do it with the 3-3 stack. We got to do something different. And the mere fact, now, Coach Pro, you tell me, if I'm your DC, and clearly you're looking at me, you know how you guys look at your coordinators. You know how you look at your coordinators down. You're looking at you when you pull your headset down. You switch.
When you look down,
you switch your radio over. You want to hear what you guys are talking about. You don't hear the box saying anything about adjustment. You don't hear any of that stuff. Am I still your defensive coordinator the next morning? No, I'm fired. That's the bottom line. You only, just like we tell players, you're only as good as your last play. Well, hell, coach, you're only as good as your last game.
Wow.
And that's the bottom line. Woo. But where do they go from here? I think because they'll do what they did in their conference like they did this year. They'll do that. But the team in their conference that I like to see, but they got outmatched when they played in the Rose Bowl with Penn State. I like that Utah team. Okay. There's something about that team that I like. They're pretty decent. They're pretty good football team. But I don't think TCU gets to the level where they got to this year because they're not going to be able to fool anybody anymore. No. People know what you get. Nobody wants to see that show anymore. I think the Horned Frog, that ship has sailed. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow, Coach Pros. Thank you, Joel. Hey, Coach Pros, I'd love to hear what you about to say.
Well, I tell you who needs to be fired is the Reach Davises of the world and the committees that get up there and talk, and it's all about public perception. They don't have a clue who's a good football team or not. They only go by what the media or the populace vote is.
The populace vote. There you go.
The newness. Well, this is new. Well, TCU's new. And blah, 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 blah. You can't sit there and put a team that's come from behind 5 times in the Big 12 and win a game. 3 of those games they had no business winning.
Right.
They lucked out at one. But the problem is those people on that committee should be fired. That's who should be fired. Yeah, the defense coordinator needs to be fired because it looked as I've seen high school coordinators do a heck of a lot better job than what I saw on that Saturday. And they just didn't give their kids a chance to win, especially after the first 2 or 3 drives. That was really taken back by that. And they were just outmanned. And then they wasn't well coached on the defensive side. Now, the other side, to me, is that dang committee. Again, they've got to figure out, regardless, because even going to 12 teams, guys, you got some dang illiterate people on that dang thing who don't know the difference between a defensive tackle and a linebacker, and they're trying to make a decision who should be in the playoffs. I saw the projected 12-team playoffs this year, And there were a couple of teams in that thing, and I'm thinking to myself, do y'all really believe they should be in a 12? Take the 12 best teams. The 12 best teams. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm disappointed with is they sit up here every Saturday and Reese will talk about, well, this team just, they lose and they don't deserve to be there. And they don't understand that team's got 17 5 stars and, they lose on the last play of the game or whatever. I mean, you just got to look and see who the best team is from a talent perspective that can win and give the audience in this country the best chance, like the NFL does. The NFL's got it right. They've got it right. And you're going to see tomorrow, starting at 3:30 Eastern, you're going to see 6 ball games.
Right.
And if it's as good as it was last year, it'll blow college football away because those ball games last year were phenomenal.
All of them.
And,
yes.
But I can't wait to get to the 12-team playoffs. I just hope they do something about putting more coaches, Bob Stoops, Urban Meyer, people like that need to be on that committee, putting the best teams in the playoffs.
Amen.
Not only automatic qualifiers and, just throw everything away but the 12 teams, the best teams.
Right. Right.
And that's my deal.
That's
get the media out of it.
Yeah. Amen to that. I think that both of you all, that's some powerful stuff. And I hope that they get to that point because I agree with you. We need to see. Now, the numbers don't lie. This was the lowest viewed as far as viewership. Yeah. Only 17.2 million people watched this game. And actually from the numbers, Ohio State, as far as viewing this year, had more. Ohio State versus Michigan was the most viewed collegiate football game this past season.
Wow.
And that number was the highest ever in any year of football games being on TV. That was Ohio State and Michigan. So that should tell you something right there. And with that being said, TCU, who knows they'll ever be in that spot again. Obviously, for this show that we're talking about what happened, you just sports fans, y'all just got it. That's what happened. They were outmatched. They didn't belong in that arena. Now they understand what the measuring stick is. They understand what excellence looks like. And it was in the form of those Georgia Bulldogs. They found out what real fast really is. All right. They understand now that, there's a different swag in the SEC. And I think America saw that, whether they want to admit it or not. For so long, I've always thought that people are against the SEC. Well, God dog it, if you're one of the best, you're one of the best. And that's just what it is. And hopefully, like you said, Coach Bros, this thing gets to, when you get 12 in there, I don't want everybody to get mad if the SEC gets 5 teams in there. Don't get mad.
Well, they're adding to the conference, right?
I'm just saying, we adding to the conference, right? So don't get mad if 12 teams of those 12, 5 will be SEC. Don't get mad. Don't get mad.
Or even 6.
Don't lie.
Or even 6. I mean, you're right, because the quality of wins in that league has to measure more than a quality win in the Big 12 minus Texas, Oklahoma, and the Pac-12 minus USC, UCLA. I mean, let's face it. You throw in the Big 10 and the SEC, that's a predominantly heavy conference. Right. You cannot punish teams for losing games in a conference as dominating as the SEC and the Big 10.
Right.
Let's face it now, guys. With Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin,
right?
They're trending upward. And then you throw Penn State; it's not going anywhere. Michigan State will rebound, hopefully. Michigan, Ohio State, that's 5, guys. And then you throw in UCLA and USC, that's 7. I mean, guys, and I'm not even counting some of the others, but that's 7, 8 quality programs. Nebraska's not going to stay down long, forever. Right. I think the old boy, if it's ever going to get turned around, the guy that just took that job that turned Baylor around. But my point being is, you better bring your lunch and your lantern if you're going to win in that conference. And the same thing in the SEC plus Oklahoma, Texas. So you're right. I mean, so here's what they're going to do. They say, okay, the winner of the Pac-12 gets a team in. This is obviously minus USC, UCLA. Well, winner of the Big 12 will get somebody in. That's 2, minus Texas and Oklahoma. The ACC, I could see getting 2. That's 4. Then you got the American Conference or the highest ranked team of all the other conference. That's 5. Well, guess what? Now you only got 7 spots. So I promise you, there's more than 7 quality teams when you combine the SEC and the Big Ten. But that's my problem with that is you're gonna have somebody, and granted, Oregon will still be Oregon, Utah will be Utah, Clemson will be Clemson, and then you got to throw in Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame wins 10 ball games, they're gonna get in. So now it went from 5 to 6. So now you don't have but 6 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC. That's unfair to me.
I agree.
Throw that away and look and see who the best. I don't like the automatic qualifier. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm with you. And hopefully, with that being said, hopefully they get away from that. I'll make sure. I'm gonna tell you, we keep on our end doing what we do, and the numbers won't lie. So hopefully, this next national championship game, I won't go to sleep, and Joel, you won't miss half the game, and Coach Pros, you won't sit up there looking crazy because it's a blowout. Hopefully, we both will have something to cheer about, at least saying it was a great darn football game.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this: you think how could y'all believe that David Pollock said what David Pollock said in front of Coach Saban standing right beside him?
Hold up, Coach. We're gonna have hey, Coach. We're about to hey, we're gonna do a show just about the look of Saban gave what Pollock said. Coach, we're gonna have a show on that. We're gonna talk. It's gonna be called "The Look" from Saban, and hashtag David Pollock. So sports fans, we're gonna have a show about that. I need for everybody to stay tuned. We're gonna let Georgia have their flowers right now because they are the big dogs.
And they deserve it. They
deserve it. No haterade. We love the accomplishment and TCU. We hope that y'all find a way to get it better because now you know what it looks like to be the best. So with that being said, Coach, we're gonna get back. Joel, Coach Pro, we're gonna get back to that. I mean, we're gonna do a show about that. You know, we're gonna roll the sleeves up and talk about that whole deal, the halftime show. Saban versus Pollock. Oh, it's going down, sports fans. Guys, thank you again. I appreciate y'all. We had fun. And listen, we're going to make sure we're going to do this again soon. Sports fans, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you like or share. Once again, thank you for watching Coach One Sports with yours truly, Coach Kevin Bull Jones. We'll see you later.
Take care. See you.
All right. Take care, guys.